Now let's get into radar and naming schemes. Specifically, when I mean get into radar, I'm pretty much talking about, uh, essentially not setting up the indexers through Jacket, um, not setting up the indexers, but really, I showed the RTorrent client already when I was talking about Swizzin. But really, in terms of media management and something called TRaSH guides. Now, TRaSH is, geez, I forgot what it meant, but it meant something like there's like the acronym. It doesn't mean trash like, oh, this is trash. It was like, I forget what the name meant exactly, but it's like, well, I can't, I anyway, so I forgot what the name means. But how this all started was this person was using radar and sonar, and he noticed that releases were being funky and weren't picking up correctly. So, and he managed to get it working for him. A bunch of people asked him a bunch of stuff and for help, and then he's like, you know what, I'm just going to make a guide. So the TRaSH guide is like the naming standard at this point. Everybody knows about it. This is what you want. So it has a lot of stuff in terms of radar. So I'm going to cover this. So first of all, we got to talk about recommended naming scheme. When I started my library, it was just a bunch of random names. If you're in that position, you need to rename all your files. That is just how it is. You can use filebot regex. Filebot's regex function is extremely powerful for getting this kind of naming. You see movie, clear name, and if you see, let's make this a lot bigger. If you see here, TRaSH is saying, oh, this is really kind of the way you want your movies to be labeled so that Plex can pick it up easily. You want it to have a movie name, the year, right? The release year, the IMDb ID. Just use TMDB, don't use IMDb, because TMDB, it still goes through TMDB. And if it doesn't have an IMDb tag, it doesn't, it doesn't work. So I use TMDB personally. Edition tags. These are all referencing media info, variables. So all of these translate from media info, and so it creates this output. So you really want to follow this, and there's a huge guide, and he'll talk about the original title and what the movie folder name should be. Hint, it should just be the movie and the year. Very simple. But once this is done, we go to stuff like custom formats, and you go, well, what the heck is a custom format? So for radar, there's qualities, right? There's quality settings, okay? Right? There's remember radar, if you go under the settings and quality, so, if you do that, so if you do that, let's do it together, shall we? So if you go under quality, not quality, profiles, you'll see these little things, these little cards, if you will. Mine is different than the standard. I removed 1080 720p combo. I have a 720p one. I could have removed it. I just didn't. I created a HD Blu-ray plus web one, and I have an Ultra HD one. So these quality profiles define to radar when it's searching at an indexer, right? Indexer, it's a tracker. When it's looking at your tracker, like, whatever your movie tracker is, it essentially creates rules, and it says, okay, this person wants to grab the blue. So in this case, when we open it, he wants to grab the Blu-ray 1080p. And notice how it's above web. So radar will always try to grab, if I mention a profile for a movie, let's say I type 300, and radar always will ask, what profile do you want? And I go HD Blu-ray plus web. It will use these rules, and it will say, okay, he wants Blu-ray first. If Blu-ray is not available, go to web. If that's not available, go to HDTV. Now, custom format is something radar does to fine-tune these profile settings. Okay. So it assigns a score to things, and it will always try to get you the highest score. So it's like essentially like, imagine it's like a glorified critic. It can check little tags and be like, oh, this is like Atmos, and this is based on the file name. So hopefully your tracker uses proper file names. But if it doesn't, then this is kind of all a useless point. But custom formats tweak the scores of these big things. So let's pretend there's a Blu-ray 1080p with, that's HD, and there's a Blu-ray 1080p that's web tier, but it's web tier with MP3 versus a web tier with Dolby Digital. It'll grab the web tier with Dolby Digital because it'll have a combined score of 1750 and 1700. Okay. So again, imagine if it's fighting between two of the Blu-rays. It will say, okay, well, what tier is it? Oh, well, it's Blu-ray. It's a Blu-ray tier 1, but there's one with Dolby Digital and one with Dolby Digital Plus and one with just Dolby Digital. Guess which one it'll grab? The one with the highest score. So tier 1800 and 1750 instead of 1800 and 750. So it gives every sort of, it basically analyzes the file names and it gives it a score. TRaSH guides essentially a lot, and if you go under custom formats, you can see all the various like TRaSH guides, custom formats. You're looking, dude, did you do all these one by one? No, I did not. So TRaSH guides has these like, they have how to, custom formats, and they go, okay, and they even tell you there's something called TRaSH Sync. You should find out about it here. And you click it here and go, okay, what's TRaSH Sync, And they talk about two apps, Notifier, I like to say fear, and Recyclar. Obviously, I look at Notifier, I'm like, ooh, that looks way, 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 way better. But then you look at Recyclar and you go, well, there's some stuff here where Recyclar is able to do V3 and V4 quality profiles, but Notifier isn't? So they sync sections of this guide to radar or sonar. So Notifier is a patron feature. You really, in order to sync, you must pay $5 minimum once. Recyclar is a command line. I don't care for. Listen, I'm all for like command line and learning the proper command line and all that. But if there's a choice between two tools, I will take the one that has a nicer interface. It's not like they're both referencing a similar process and, there's a GUI for one and I'm being lazy and not going for the command line for that program. These are two separate programs doing the, same functions essentially. So the custom formats are all under here. Look at this. Look at all these custom formats. So he talks about, it's very overwhelming at first. When you're a new person, you go, okay, oh my freaking God, what the hell is all this? And you go, oh, this is intimidating as hell. I'm looking at all this. And you see all these, you go, what, JSON files? Whoa, what the heck? So really, and I believe there's, I know that TRaSH had a image. He had like a flow image. There's like a flow image that he had. And, I forget where the flow chart is. Here he is. I created a flow chart under quality profile. So he created a flow chart of which quality profile should you choose. So if you look at this flow chart, what I love about Notifier, and I'm going to recommend Notifier here, and I believe Nitsua and Notifier really created something great, is they created this flow chart and they automated it. I love that. Love that. But really, this thing is like, okay, do you want untouched high quality video? Yes. Then you're going to use these, essentially these are the custom formats you want to aim for. Okay. So I believe there's like multiple sort of custom formats. So he kind of goes over, okay, if you want HD Blu-ray and web, and I actually mimic that, didn't sync it, but what syncs are those cards that you saw, not, this doesn't sync the quality profile. You have to still add that yourself manually, but you will get all these custom format cards under Radar. So here he's kind of saying, okay, you're going to grab all of these. You're going to grab all of these. Go here, grab the JSON, copy it, create the card. But Notifier is very cool because, first of all, they want you to run what's called a client. And the way Notifier works is they want you to have, first of all, a Discord channel to send notifications to. I have one, and inside of that is, you get a web token and you invite the Notifier bot in there so that it sends notifications. It's a requirement. You have to have it. But, okay, so one of the things you want to do with Notifier is you want to link your wherever you sponsor them, you want to link that account under the settings. And then there's also a Notifier API token. I didn't show the settings because I don't want to share that, right? It's kind of personal. So there's an API token there and all this stuff. So you're going to need that API token as well. And you want to connect a client, okay, a Notifier client. And so this must be wherever, it can be, you can run in many different ways. I ran it as a Docker container that I made, but essentially it's a client. And the client is, essentially able to, we're going to actually go to the client right now. This is the Notifier website. But again, there's a client as well. So if we do, right here, and we go to Docker, we Notifier client, okay? So the client is set up on, let's see, port 5454. So let's go there. Let's see what's going on. One thing I wanted to mention regarding first starting up Notifier, if you look here, that it actually mentions that, hey, someone when a new Docker image is deployed with an empty config folder mounted, the app will do two things. If the API key is not configured or invalid, it will create a new UI password and print it into the log file. Then it will write a brand new config file with this password already saved. So, Notifier says, okay, use the default admin and API key you set up in the config file to log into the app. Now you can configure and set up the client via the UI, including changing your password. So again, for myself, I remember I did not set up the config file here. So let me just zoom out a little bit. So they tell you how to set that up. So you can do this. I didn't set it up. I ran it manually. It errored. I stopped the Notifier client. I stopped the Notifier client, and then I checked what the password was, and then I started it again. Then I was able to enter. So that's something really important. That's a little weird with it, but they kind of mention, unRAID users, you must configure a Notifier API key in the unRAID template container. See, I forgot to do this. The Plex token and Plex URL if you wish to use Plex. I didn't do that. So they did tell you that, but I forgot that part. So the client here is this. So he goes, oh, bienvenido, thank you, welcome. So this is where you're going to configure your star apps. Okay, so I configured my star apps. Notice I'm referencing 192.168.1.8. And I'm using, again, this is, you can check mark it here for SSL. I didn't check mark SSL because then it's going to complain about certificates, right? Like if I check it, though, no, it didn't actually. But you don't have to. You can just do it that way. But you can even do it that way. Sure. No, see, 301. See that? That's the Nginx reverse proxy. So we want to just keep it how it is on our browser. API keys for both. Save it. And then that's the star app there. Now, under configuration, you could put the SSL cert path. You could get really complex with it. I didn't mess too much with it. But again, star apps, and you just configure that. And then that's been configured. And again, your profile this is a very local profile. But once again, once you get Notifier client here, working with the star apps, and you have the APIs. Okay. So integrations, there's the integrations there for Notifier. And there's log files too, so you can really check whether something weird's going on. You can also go to the app data folder of Notifier that you created with Docker. You know, for unRAID, that's in mount user app data if you specified it like that. And you could just make sure, and you could take a look at that. For me, it's under config logs Notifier. For me, I defined what config/logs is, or I think I just did config, and I don't know, I forget what. Actually, we could take a quick look see, I guess, what I defined that as. But I think with Notifier, I defined that as config is mount user app data Notifier. Yep, that seems to line up with what they want. So once you create the configuration apps and the star apps links, it is able to determine, you see how it says patron true, you know, so it is able to determine I am the user that I claim I am. And so remember, one thing is that Notifier uses the API key from notifier.com. So you're going to need that in there to be in there before, you know, so it can connect over to Notifier. So back to this integrations page, if you take a look, is I already have custom format 74 and 398 scores configured. If I hit settings, we're going to see these settings here. Radar, sonar, custom format greater than or equal to version 4, or, you know, less than or equal to version 3. So we don't have to worry about it. This is more of like if you're on an older version. I wasn't, so I can't really cover that. So again, ratings, profile, what is this? RP names. RP names. Huh, interesting. This is a lot. Anyways, so quality is the download rule. So if you notice that you can, this is right from TRaSH. TRaSH minimum, your minimum, TRaSH preference, your preference, TRaSH maximum, your maximum. So remember, this is the quality that determines how many megabytes per minute you want certain certain qualities to be. So your Blu-ray 2160, you're basically saying, well, my minimum should be 102 megabytes per minute. But TRaSH's minimum is like, no, that needs to be 399. And I'm sure that he has a reason for that. I just don't know what that is. I'm guessing he's just attempting to get the highest quality for Ultra HD, because Remux is a part of his profile. So I think he's just assuming, hey, if I could get the highest quality no matter what of any file, that's what's going on there. So I think that's really what that is, because again, TRaSH minimum, your minimum, preferred is the middle. So this is what they prefer, and maximum is just one step under minimum. So, okay, this makes sense. So 399 means get the highest no matter what, even if it's close to like 400. I always want the highest WebDL or WebRip or Blu-ray. I always want the highest quality. Sync. Now, sync is very important, okay? Sync is where you can use the TRaSH flowcharts for help. This is what I love about Notifier. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't. Recycler might be free, but Notifier, you get what you pay for. Workflow, default, audio, HDR. Which one do you want? SQP means streaming quality profile 1 or 2 to 5, and I don't really know what those ones are for. I think that's if you're really just trying to create a streaming quality platform for like mobile phones and stuff like that, and not really me. For me, I want the highest quality, so I go default. And look at that. We kind of have a chart here that says 29, 2023. I'm trying to see what else we got. 22, because we were able to pull up a chart, remember, for quality profiles here that was, I think this flow chart was 2023. Maybe I gotta let them know. It is 2023. See, so this is the quality profiles radar. So they kind of simplified it here a little bit, but doesn't really matter. So again, this is the October guide. I don't mind this at all. I actually really prefer this one. So it says, okay, do you want untouched? Yes. Okay, do you have proper audio? Yes. Do you have an Apple TV? No. So when you click one of these, what happens is it doesn't, don't worry, you can click it. What happens is you get this window. And so this window says, okay, I'm going to grab all of these custom formats, JSON files. Remember those JSON files that I was like, oh, what's this? I'm scared, you know? So this program is saying, we'll grab all of these and we'll exclude the one on the right. And which profile do you want to apply the scores to? So you can choose, okay, I only want to apply it here on this one. And so it will apply the scores to one of these. So remember those scores, they're numbers. Remember I showed you guys the numbers? It's like 1750 for Dolby Digital Plus, all this stuff. And it adds it together and creates a big number, right? 10,000, 20,000, whatever. And Radar knows based on that custom format score that it's going to go for that. Now, interestingly, what we have is this means that it will apply the scores. But if you don't choose them, it will still show up in the list. It will still show up in Radar's list. So I'm going to show you guys that real quick. So it will still show up in Radar's list here under custom formats. And this is something that I didn't know. So notice this. It's still in the list, but it zeroes it out. So whatever you don't choose will be zeroed out. So in my case for HD, you know, Dolby Vision HDR, they're still in there. Just because I didn't select it doesn't mean those custom formats aren't in there. Zero means there's no score. They don't impact negatively and the score, and they don't add to it. So effectively it's like they're not even there. So this doesn't mean, oh, like I don't want to clutter this area. I thought that's what that meant. Like, oh, why are these showing up in there still? So that's not, you guys are probably not sure. That's really what that is. So once you apply it, it'll check mark. In fact, we could, you know, I mean, I can't really do it because mine is already set up. But if you do it, it'll check mark. Let me hit X here. Oh gosh. It'll check mark right down here. So these are the custom formats, okay? So if I click HDR formats, you can see it's check marked. Dolby Vision with what score? 1500. DV HDR, what score? 1500. So the sync CF, this is all, what does sync mean? Sync to what? Radar? Initially, when you have nothing, that is what that means. So if you accidentally uncheck one of these, it won't show up in Radar, but it won't create the custom format scorecard. But once you have it, what this really means is keep syncing it to TRaSH Guide. So if TRaSH Guide changes something, I want you to update the JSON file. So this, you see the save sync state, remove from Radar. I don't really use this remove from Radar. I've found that it can be a little iffy. The save sync state, again, this is for saving the, so once you download them, you can uncheck them. So if TRaSH Guide changes, it doesn't mess with your whatever reason you don't want to, change up the score because you like how it is. But if suddenly TRaSH Guide says, hey, listen, for DV HDR, suddenly the score is 500. It's not that good of a HDR format. Then your thing here will automatically sync it to TRaSH based on this setting monthly for me. I didn't do 1 day, 2 days. I think it's overkill. I don't want to live like that. I'd rather go month by month. So if something crazy does happen, I'll be able to track that easier than going through the days of when things changed. Then once you do that, there's a scores section where you can tweak it from in here, I believe. But, I just personally edit the scores inside of Radar, but I think this is the same thing. It's just grabbing the scores from the profiles from Radar, and it's just going to give them to you. So in a much nicer to understand way. So it's going to say, oh, look, in HD 720p, it's 1000, and this one is 1000. Do you want to adjust it up or down? You know, how, by what multiplier? I go, okay, yeah, let me adjust it by a multiplier of 1, you know, or 2. Let's make it 2. So this will now be 2000. So, you know, something like this. So fine tune the scores for your setup while still keeping the CF in sync. Multiplier times TRaSH equals yours. So, you know, or you could just set the custom score outright. So don't really mind that. And again, these are the syncs. So syncing to Radar on this tab. Now, naming this one is, you know, I just did movie folder because I manually went into Radar and did the clean title, TMDB ID with TRaSH guide, and then delete. This is where you can delete the custom format. So this is where you want to delete it. You don't want to delete, even though that tab did say remove from Radar. Really, I think what's going on with that one is it's just, if you remove the sync state, it's removing the sync state. If you hit remove from Radar, it does work, but I find delete is the one you want. Fix map, unlink map, delete. Honestly, if you're getting into these, I would just fresh start, just nuke them all, and then fix map, unlink map. So once you have that, then Notifier, once you push all, remember in the sync tab, I don't believe I mentioned, but you have to actually hit push all or save all. So in the sync tab, once you have all your settings, you're going to want to do save all. And then it'll give you a warning. It's like, hey, are you sure it's going to take 10 to 500 minutes like this? And you hit OK, and then you'll suddenly start hearing your Discord notification. Blink, blink, blink. So here in Discord channels, I set it up. You see? Test permission. So if I hit this, you'll hear it. Oh, I have my Discord set to do not disturb, so you can't really hear it. But you could see it here. The bot can post new messages. So you always want to set up your Discord. And you want to make sure that you get the bot in there and read up on that. So Notifier is one of those things that I highly recommend.